Hey everyone, welcome back. I know it's been almost a year to the date since I've published a YouTube video. Those of you who follow along on the live streams know that 2023 was quite a big year for me. I actually got married, and there's a lot of work that goes into planning and leading up to a wedding, and then right after that was the holidays. So it's been a really long time, but I'm excited to get back to it. I went through the archives and I found a number of TOA streams from 2023 that I never got to publish. So that's what you see today. You're going to notice my background change immediately because I have since moved since this live stream was recorded. But I'm getting back into uploading everything because it was really important to me when I started building the TOA app that all of it would be done in the open, and I'd record and share as much as that as possible. So, without further ado, check out this live stream from almost a year ago where I am excited to be back. I'm so glad that we moved to doing these twice a week streams. It's been a lot of fun, especially on Friday afternoons, kind of break up my workday a little bit and do some other coding and hang out with all of you. And I know more of you usually get to be here on Fridays, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad you're here. Hope everyone's doing well. Before I start, and I'll probably show this again in a little bit, but I want to give a shout out to my friends Matt and Madonna. They've been doing these. They used to host weekly Android Twitter Spaces, and they stopped doing that after Twitter no longer became the place that we all wanted to hang out. And they're moving their discussions over to Telegram. Ironically enough, they posted the announcement on Twitter to kind of reach their existing audience and move folks over. But if you're interested, definitely go check out that discussion. It starts at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is an hour from now. I think I'll still be live, but maybe I'll end in an hour and we can go hang out and support them. To be determined. But either way, I will send people over there. The answer to Trax's question on how do I split my friends, go support their Telegram talk today. If I don't cancel stream because I'm in the zone, like, I'll post this on YouTube, whatever. Like, go support them. This is their first time doing it over on Telegram. They should get all the support, which is why I'm considering maybe I'll end at about an hour and we can all go join that and support them. I think that's something I'd like to do, but we'll just see where we're at in an hour. But go hang out with them if you can. So with that being said, I kind of started a little early, and maybe I'll just dive right in. And I like to sometimes walk through the thought process of what I want to do on a given day, because maybe that's not always super clear. Let me get rid of all these things. I'm using Electric Eel again because my beta Android Studio has been freezing on me all morning. I don't know why. But so on Wednesday's stream, if y'all were here, we did some race condition stuff. If you were marking multiple tasks as done, which was like, we could mark both of these done, we'd still see the stack bars for each item individually, which is kind of cool. And I considered writing some Compose UI tests for this. Oh, you can't see the full stack bar. Sorry about that. And I considered writing some Compose UI tests for this, which is still something I would like to do. I think that would be cool. But it got a little complicated to think about with the snack bar and stuff. And I realized with the TOA app specifically, we haven't invested a ton of time into Compose UI testing in the first place. So I started to think, like, well, what would be a good sort of introduction to this? And I remembered that I'm going to clear the app data on this really quick. Are you not gonna? I can only Command Shift A from the thing. I'm gonna clear the app data really quick. This app actually has a login screen. It was the first thing we built, and I think the first 5 streams were working on this login screen. And eventually we were like, okay, we're probably not going to actually ship this with a login screen if we ever ship this, because it'll be local on your device, but it was still cool to build. And actually, when you don't have any app data, or you see this login screen, and what happens when you log in is we basically use a proto data store where we generate a fake auth token. It's just randomly generated in our app right now. And we store that on the device using data store. So, sorry, let's get rid of all these. And so that's why when you open it up again, you see the main screen. So I thought this flow, this sort of conditional app startup, would be a good opportunity to begin exploring UI tests because it covers a couple different things. Number one, for the login screen in general, we learn all the basics of UI testing. How do I find elements on the screen? How do I insert some input? How do I click a button? And how do I make sure I navigate it to a new screen? That's all great things to learn. And then we also have this idea of, well, how can I test like conditional app startup? Can I write a UI test that simulates already being logged in? Or does my UI test always have to log me in first? And both approaches I think are kind of valid, but I tend to prefer the first one, which is like your UI test should start in the state you want your app to be. And that question is a rabbit hole of its own. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we look at our main activity really quick, what happens here is we've got this like session view model. This is a state container that manages like whether or not you're logged in. So it's got this use case to determine if the user is logged in, right? And it's got some session state. And basically, as soon as it initializes, we get the session state from logged in status. And then we can check, is the user logged in? If they are, our session state is logged in. If we're not, our session state is logged out. And then what our main activity does, if I can find this, is we keep the splash screen open while initializing. And so this is a cool way of keeping the splash screen up on the splash screen visible while we determine the information we need. And we do that by getting the session state. If we're still initializing, this is the default state, then we return false. We don't want to remove the splash screen. But when we're ready, we start drawing. So then we remove this pre-draw listener and we return true. And so what that does up here is that basically will just keep looping. And then we can draw. And what'll happen is when we create like our theme, we configure the system bars, blah, 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 we get our session state. And then we get our start route. We say, okay, well, if we're uninitialized, there is no start route. But if we have one, if we're logged in, we want to go to the task list screen. If we're logged out, we go to the login screen. And then if we have that start route, we generate our nav host with that start route. We also have window size, which I don't remember we actually did stuff with in this project. But apparently we support a little bit of that. That's going to be another feature stream we look at. So that's how this works. That's how this login state works. So if I want to test this, I've kind of got two options to think about, which is how does my test determine if we're logged in or not? And when I say we've got two ways, number one, we can run this as if it's like an actual device, and we can just try to force the app state ourselves. So what we can do is, okay, if the app is pulling from our proto data store, then what we can do is before the test starts, we can access that data store, hard code the value to say like there's no token or anything like that, and then we can start up the app. The other option is we can create a fake dependency that we hard code ourselves, and then, hey Maya, and then we can take that fake dependency and configure that before our test starts. They sound like they're almost the same approach. Either way, before our test starts, we have to get something into... Also, hi, Little Limit. Thanks for coming by. Didn't want to code a daily, so act like I don't know. I mean, I totally understand. My HTML and CSS knowledge ended with MySpace, and when MySpace died, I was like, all right, well, that all that knowledge is wasted. I don't think it's true anymore. I don't think we use the marquee tag or like the flashing text. You don't see that as much anymore, but back in the MySpace era, that was the thing. So going back to the inward stuff, so I know it sounded like I said the same thing twice, that no matter what, when we write our test, we need to configure something to simulate whether or not we're logged in. And, what's the word? And so the question is whether we want to access the data store ourselves or whether we want to write a fake login use case, write like a custom Dagger module for our tests that replaces the use case with like the fake one, and then go from there. And I don't know which one I like more. I don't know if chat has... our Nightbot command is wrong. That is not the project we're working on today. Let me fix that. And so I don't know if chat, those Android devs in the crowd, if you have an opinion, if you've done UI tests before and you have an idea on what you think is better. I think it would be cool to look at how we can override dependencies in Dagger, and it's kind of like personally where I'm leaning, because I want to simulate the app code and all of its integrations as realistically as possible, right? While just configuring specific data layer stuff. So what I'm thinking I would like to do is create a fake is user logged in use case. Although I don't know if that's actually what we would do. Create like a fake and then figure out how to override that in our tests. So why don't we start there? So I made 2 files here. I made the logdown main activity test. I did this by creating modules with optional override values in the constructor and then providing a component builder function on the component to pass in the module. Do you have a code sample of that? I kind of understand, but the reason I want to check on the use case is I think this use case is an actual class. Yes, it's the token repository that we would override. So we would want to create a fake token repository if we don't have one already, which we don't. Let's make that really quick. And I think I need the hilt annotations here. Let's add everything. So, okay, so what we can do here is we can create like our own token. And when we store a token, we can do just set the token, clear token, we can do token equals null. And then observe token, we can return flow of this token. Not easy to extract, but let me see if I can write it for example. If you can't, no worries. Because I think what we can do is override hilt dependencies in test. And there is a hilt testing guide we can look at. So let me take a step back on what I just wrote here. So our is user logged in use case that's used by this session view model. It's just a class. It doesn't extend an interface, but it consumes this token repository. And what we do is when we determine if the user is logged in, we access that token repository, and we basically, as long as the token is not null, we assume they're logged in. Now this token repository, this I can override because it's an interface. So I made a fake token repository that just stores this token sort of in memory, and we manipulate it ourselves. So what I need to figure out then is how do I generate a test? I'm going to rename this to, hey, Mitzer, thank you for the follow. I'm going to rename this instead to a, actually, we can leave it as logged out. And so what we want to do is we want this test to say like render login, or, you know, like we would write a test to log in, but the first thing we would do is like verify login screen visible. And what we would have here is we would have this before function, and before anything happens, we would say override or get a reference to the fake token repository, clear the token to simulate being logged out, and then basically that's it. Like then we can start our test. No, the link blocking isn't there, so I can open that. So what we have, the limit is we have a login screen already, and what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to automate the login process. So that's kind of what we're going through. But what we've got to do in order to automate this, doxing myself on Twitch, no problem. Been there, done that. I once did a stream where when I got like the Pixel 6 phone, and I was showing off the camera and I went out my window and I was like, I should probably not broadcast like the literal street that I live on. And so like that VOD has been deleted ever since. I'm like, that was not the smartest thing I ever did, because I've seen those GeoGuessr people and like they will find me. Like they're not messing around. Okay, let's check out this link. Class APM. Ah, I see. Okay. Okay, I see what you did here. Hi, Sav. Um, we have to be important enough for anyone to care to find us. I mean, also valid. Also, I live in New York City and I live in Brooklyn. And I could tell you that, and I could be like, you have millions of other people to compete against, probably several of which are also named Adam. But yeah, it's like, huh. Okay, I see what you did here. So we can maybe do that, but I want to look at this Hilt testing guide and look at UI test setup. So annotate UI tests that use Hilt with Hilt Android tests. Okay, we can do that. And it needs a Hilt rule. So the next thing we need, this might be relevant, we'll come back to that. You must execute instrumented tests that use Hilt in an application object that supports Hilt. The library provides Hilt test application for use in tests. If your tests need a different base application, see custom application for tests. Okay. Which I don't think we do. I've considered that, and I've done it in other projects, but we don't have a custom application class here. I'm not even the only Adam, who is an Android mobile. I'd be curious who the others are, because I know a couple. And the Android community can be pretty small, but so I do need a custom test runner though. Oh, I see. I need a custom test runner that references a Hilt application class. Okay. And then I override that runner. But how do I can inject types and test. Ooh, this might be enough, actually. This might be enough. So I don't know an Adam who works at Disney Hulu, but worth asking. I know someone who does work it. What is the difference between Hilt and Dagger? Good question. So Hilt is kind of an extension on top of Dagger that just makes it a little easier. I don't know the details in what it's extending on top of. Like, I don't really know like the nuanced details, but that's the sort of high level understanding that I do have is Hilt is like a wrapper around Dagger itself that just reduces a little bit of boilerplate for us. Oh, okay, here's what I wanted. So if you need to inject a fake or mock instance of a dependency, you can tell Hilt not to use the binding that it used in production code. So we can, for example, suppose your production code declares an analytics service like this. We have this. I'm going to share this in chat, by the way, if anyone else wants to follow along. This is nice. Yeah, I knew this was supported, so that's where I wanted to get to. To replace this, we create a fake module. We give it components. Oh, and we give it this replaces. It also has this test installed in. And then I replace it here. So this is pretty cool. Non-Hilt analog. Do you mean like, can you do this exact same thing with Dagger? Sav might bring up a good point. I don't know if Hilt is Colin specific, but if it is, then that would be a reasonable thing. So my high level understanding for Dallas, by the way, is yes, that Hilt can do the same thing. Whether or not it has this exact same syntax, I'm not sure, but I know that you can. And actually, I know that you can because I've done it at work. Twitch does this. And I don't remember the details. I kind of looked at how someone else did it. And yeah, sorry, I meant Dagger. They both can do this, is what I'm saying. And I know this because at Twitch, we only use Dagger and we have some test overrides. I don't remember the details. You'd have to look at the docs, but like the functionality is there. But going back, so I considered the idea, I've kind of been going down this rabbit hole, assuming I would have to replace this login case, which I could, except if my token repository gives me an option to clear the token, then why couldn't I just like, inject the token repository and then in setup, call token repository.clear token. And we would run blocking on this case. And so I'd still be using the production token repository that's dealing with data store on the device, but that's okay. This is kind of what I said earlier, that like I'm just tweaking the device state more or less. And I kind of prefer this more because I think I think mocking dependencies in your UI tests is valid for a lot of reasons, specifically when it comes to like your data layer. You don't want your UI tests to be dependent on whether or not the service that powers your app is up and running. Like, we don't want that. We want to be able to simulate error codes. We want to be able to simulate success reliably. But with something like this, where I know that ultimately this is dealing with on-device situations and my class has the way to put itself in the right state, then I'd prefer to do that. So let's go with this first option where we can inject right into our test. Now we do still have a couple things we need to do, like the hilt rule. I'm going to copy this and just reference this. So this would be a hilt Android test, which seems to be another dependency I need. But then we'll have it rule. Hilt Android rule. Yeah, we definitely need another dependency. But then when we set up, we do hilt rule dot inject. Okay, I think I can go from here. Let's go back up to the docs and see if there is a dependency. It is kind of stretched, and yes, that's only for streaming. Is it bothering folks? People have commented on it, and I did it because the aspect ratio of the stream and the aspect ratio of my MacBook are not identical. And so I don't really have a good way to do this without adding, like, considering black bars or like showing out some other blank. And I kind of thought like I would just stretch it because people can then still see everything. That's kind of my thought, but people are commenting on it. If it's distracting, I could consider changing this back, but okay. Test dependencies. This is what I need. Oh, do I need capped Android test? Oh, okay, maybe I need both. So let's do that really quick. Let's go to build.gradle. Only bother someone considering the design of something that is valid. These quotes here. Do I have hilt version? So down here, we're going to replace this 2.44 with hilt version. You should be able to change that in your Twitch settings. Let me know if that works. I don't personally set the settings that low. I don't think. Let me know on Twitch. There should be a little gear icon at the bottom right of the video player, I believe, that you can tweak your resolution. Sometimes I don't, and I should know the answer to this working on the Twitch mobile app, but I don't know how it decides what resolution. I don't know if you're on mobile or desktop. Either way, I don't know how it decides what resolution to start with. But, so is this working now? Nice. Nice. So, okay. So we do this. We initialize our hilt rule, and then we clear the token. I do think I still need your test needs to know about the application class of hilt. So I do need this custom test runner. So let's put this here. We'll call this hilt test runner. I'm going to link to the docs to explain why this is here. So we need to override our application test for hill dependency to work correctly. Okay, and we also need to update this in our um, default config test instrumentation runner. We'll do that. Nice. So now we just replace this hill test runner. Learning basic HTML in one of my class, and I realized how many levels there are. Yeah, software of all types gets quite complicated. Hi, Carmen. Hope you're doing well. So let's just, to verify the login screen is visible here, let's do, oh, well, we also need our compose test rule. Also, can I make this a val? I prefer to. Create Android compose rule. Oh, wait. Equals. Create Android compose rule. Main activity. Why are you yelling at me? No way, this is experimental. Okay. Well, we'll opt in. So then what we'll do is we'll just do a really quick, like, I'll clean this up in a second, but we'll make sure the login screen is visible. So we've got a couple texts here. We've got email, password, login, sign up. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make sure all of these are displayed. Why? All right, we're just gonna put the opt-in on the class. That'll do it. So I'm gonna clean this up, don't worry, but this is a start. Another way I could do this is like put like a test tag on the login screen container, which is something I prefer to do, which is probably what we'll do when we clean it up. But for now, let's just make sure everything is displayed. Okay, let's run this test and let's make sure it passes. I'm gonna bring I'm gonna bring this doc back over here. Okay, start it up. Login screen is visible. Great. It should not be taking this long to make sure the things are visible, but maybe it's doing something I don't know. So, and then another thing I want to do to kind of test my test here is I'm going to log in and then rerun the test and make sure that it still passes and make sure that this part is actually doing what I think it's doing. Cool, it passed. So let's log in. And let's run the test again. And let's make sure that it still passes and that all of this is working the way we think it will. If it doesn't, I have some ideas on why this might fail. Which it did not, by the way. So, well, this came up, but okay, so it did not work. So here's why I think it didn't work. I think the compose test rule by default is set up to render the activity right away. So in Espresso, we had a way to delay the start. which I don't know that we have. Okay, so delay start of activity, compose UI testing. Um, that's why I want to look at the create Android compose rule, because in the espresso world, what we could do is on our compose, on our like, well, whatever espresso called it, the activity test rule, you could have a parameter like start right away, and that didn't, um, and so it would wait, right? Um, oh, maybe this is relevant. This creates a test rule that is using activity scenario rule as the activity launcher. If you'd like to use a different one, you can create Android compose test rule directly. Supply it with your own launcher. But does activity scenario rule do what I want? Um, let's look real quick and see what the difference is. But I don't know that this. I don't want to make my own test rule. What is? Let me look at this one again. What does this one do? Android compose test rule. Maybe this is what I want to reference. Or we can give an activity provider. Let me go back to searching this and see if I can find. No, this isn't what I want. I wonder if I can do instead. Am I still logged in here? This is weird. Something. Oh, the app data gets cleared, but not before I need it to. So something else I was thinking we could try is can we do before class? I don't know if this will work, but this might be something we can try. If this doesn't work, if we can't, okay, yeah, we get an initialization error. Um, I do. Um, I don't think I can like. I don't think I can override the rule later on. Do I work with graphic designers at all? And if so, do you have any pet peeves when they send you designs? Um, when I am an Android developer and I only get designs that are made for an iPhone, that's one. That's probably my biggest one. Um, I don't really have pet peeves. I love all the designers I work with. I think that's just something I've kind of dealt with. There's a lot of reasons why designers only uh, like prefer iOS, and usually there's enough overlap that it's fine. But it's still kind of frustrating when they don't understand the nuances of the Android ecosystem. When they change once you're working on them, definitely also valid. Um, it seems kind of limiting. I don't know that it's limiting because the way I would think about this is like, I mean, what's limiting for designing for like those formats is the screen size, right? Or I guess like that's what I think of. Um, And it's not so much that I get a design that has like the iPhone like status bars at the top. It's not those things. It's when like um like this is more so now you see both platforms have like look at this bottom bar. This is like an Android toolbar. And iOS, these bottom bars are going to look different typically if you're using like the system components. And that's just kind of a pet peeve because like sure, I can look at the bottom bar and be like, okay, I just have to make the Android version. Um, but like other stuff, like sometimes you see like this app doesn't have it, but sometimes you see like a toolbar at the top where like this also is very Androidy design, whereas the iOS toolbars look a little different. And it can just kind of like those small tweaks that I have to mentally make, like just kind of add up for me. Not that that's just to be clear, like I'm not speaking about my current employer at all. Twitch does great at providing us both designs and really understanding those nuances, but it's something I have had to deal with in the past. Yeah, and it's like it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just it can kind of add up. For example, on Android, like we have this like floating action button at the bottom right? Like that. Also, you see it occasionally on iOS more now, I think, but historically, like that's been a very like Android material design UI thing, whereas like sometimes in iOS you'd actually see like a plus button in the toolbar. And these are very small, like nuanced platform things, but they add up both as a developer and for your users if your app doesn't follow like their ecosystem, if that makes sense. So it's not the worst pet peeve because it's a solvable problem, but it's kind of the first one that stands out in my experience of stuff that I've dealt with. And I understand that makes designers' jobs harder to understand the nuances of two different platforms. How are the navigation patterns different? How are the text input patterns different? Like, it's not an easy problem. And so I'm not upset. Like, let me just say that. Like, I am never like hostile towards like designers who do this. It's as much something I can work on as them. So like at one job I worked on, this was a common problem because I was the very first Android developer. And the design team never really had to consider these prior. So it also became my responsibility to, when I get designs, to like chat with them and say, well, here's how I would do this differently. And they were always super understanding. They're like, okay, that's great to know. Like, be kind to people is what I'm saying. Like I like when I get these like pet peeve questions, I like always feel bad because I don't want to like criticize others, but I feel like that came from a place of like, hey, I could tell when you said you were after you said you were in school, I was like, I feel like this question's coming from a place of what can I like try to avoid? So that's why I answered it that way. But it's definitely hard, and don't beat yourself up trying to like understand every nuance of the two platforms. You'll probably work with engineers who are totally like willing to work with you on the same things. But as an engineer, and I've spoken to plenty of other engineers, especially in the Android space, we all feel the same way. It's Friday, let's go. I don't have a Friday emote, but we'll spam the pets. It'll be close enough. So where were we? Okay. So we were at the point where this setup call is happening, but the activity is still being created. And hey, Crep Kirby. Oh, all the bread dogs are in here right now. Loving it. So what we're trying to do, chat, if you're curious, I've got this login screen, which is not visible right now, that I'm trying to automate in my app. But a problem I'm facing is I want to simulate like that I'm already logged out so that when the app starts, I go right into the login screen. And then I'm going to write similar tests to make sure that like when I simulate that I am logged in, we log in straight to the words, like the task list screen. I used to work at a place where design once halted a release because a shadow was a few pixels off. Oof. Oof. I've been a part of a lot of discussions where the design hasn't been perfect, and we say, like, is it release blocking? And I always feel bad when I watch the designers die inside because they want to say yes, but they don't want to be the person who blocks the release. I've seen it happen. I've like seen the look in their eyes where they're like, I want to say yes to this, but I understand why I can't. And I'm like, that's so upsetting because if you feel that way, then feel that way. Like, I'd rather ship it well. I mean, obviously, you have to debate, like, well, how long is it delaying shipping? And, like, that's a whole thing. Some companies have very strict release processes, but yeah. Um, so we got to figure out how do we simulate the logged in state? And I'm kind of thinking now. I'm kind of leaning towards going back the other route and um providing the fake token repository and tweaking it there. So there's a couple ways we can do this, right? So I don't think it's enough to. So we can tweak our test to consume the fake token repository, right? I'm also going to rename this to MainActivity test uh, because I want to keep this to the scope. Instead of testing the login screen right now, um, we're going to have show login when not signed in. Okay, I'm actually going to rethink this. So the problem exists that this setup call runs before the test, but after the activity is created. So let's look at this another way. Our activity, as we talked about way earlier, is set up that it waits until it can observe a login status. So what we can do is we can provide our fake token repository, and we can have this fake token repository when we observe a token. We can have this basically suspend until my test emits a value, if that makes sense. So why don't we try that result where we'll supply this fake token repository, we'll have this suspend until I want to give it a value, and then we'll go from there. So to do some TDD on what I mean here is, like, let's rename this. So we're going to need to mock logged out. And then we'll write another test here. I'm going to fill this in really quick. Show task list when signed in. So we'll say mock logged in, but then we'll do like, you have nothing scheduled for this day, make time for yourself. We're going to make sure that this empty state is shown instead. We may also actually want to like, I am familiar with the robot pattern, and I want to talk about it when I get to actually testing the login flow. Which in hindsight, like, I'm kind of testing something different than what I was going for when I started the stream, which is that I'm testing this main activity and not the login screen specifically. If I wanted to test the login screen specifically, I can still do that. And maybe we should do that instead. And just test the login screen on its own. What do y'all think? Do we want to try that? Where instead of dealing with this activity, we can come back to this. Although I do want to figure this out because I still think it's a good thing to learn. So let's keep going down this rabbit hole. I've got another hour and a half still, and I bet I can get through both. So let's try just this conditional startup test first. So I want to go back to the Hill testing guide really quick because we need to do this. Replacing a binding. So that's a prod one. So this is what the test one would look like. So let's make a new and we'll call this fake repository module. Fake repository module replaces repository module. token repository, uh, token repository, and then include all of these. So, okay. So will this work? Hmm. Um, we're logged in right now. One way I can test if this worked is I can run this not signed in test. I just want to make sure this compiles, which it doesn't. Oh no. Okay. My fake looks like my fake module needs to override everything. So I'm gonna have these binds. Um, I'm just gonna replace these with the default implementations. So that's good to know that if you're going to replace a module in Hilt, you need to replace all the dependencies of that module. That's kind of upsetting. I wish I could just override one, but I guess I understand. Okay, so we were logged in and now we're not. So this is kind of working. But if we were to run both of our tests, we would see that they don't both pass. And so why not? So we need to go back to this fake token repository and we need to change this. So what we would want here is return a flow. Um, so what I want to do is I want to write a function like emit token, right? That takes in some token and we'll say emit token. And so we'll say like ideally, so this will return a flow that suspends until we actually push some token via the emit token um, function. So how do we do this? I've done this ages ago, but um, I don't know if this makes sense. Return how to emit flow value from a different function. Okay, maybe this is relevant. I guess I could use a state flow. Mm, but oh, maybe I can do that. So I can make like a can I make a nullable flow? I can have a mutable state flow of a token. And so when we store token, we could do token state that value equals token. When we clear a token, we could do token state that value equals null. I don't know if this is going to yell at me, but this would just be token state. And then when we want to, I guess emit token would have been the same as store token. No, because I don't want it to. I want the flow to suspend entirely. I forgot how I did this with. Um, uh, okay. This isn't exactly what I want. Let me go back here. I think what I was starting to get to was actually right. Um, um, hmm. So I want this, when I observe, I basically want to suspend until, so I could do like flow, right? But then how do I emit to this? And is this the wrong way to think about it entirely? That's what I always gotta ask myself. I honestly wonder if another hacky way to do this is like, what if I just recreate the activity? Can I do that? I can recreate the activity. All right, hold up, hold on. I'm setting this. That's it. But is that hacky? Like, could I do, token repository dot clear token and then like mock logged out and recreate activity? This would allow me to get rid of this file. Um, hold on. Let's go back to this. It's still using the fake token repository, which is fine, but we can come back to that. So then we could do like, oh my god, keyboard. I don't want the full path here. Wait, why? Why are you giving me the full path? What else is in here? Um, and then this feels a little hacky, but wouldn't this work? I don't see why it wouldn't work. So let's run these tests. And see what happens. So show login screen when not signed in. That worked. It's gonna run some tests. I don't know why it's so slow. I don't usually the UI tests are a lot faster. And I don't know if it's my machine or what. Yeah, but it passed. It did this earlier. It took like it should not take this long. Um, Unless this is trying to tell me my composed tree is unnecessarily complicated, but I don't think that's it. Um, but this did not work. Did it not work because it recreated the activity, but the view model didn't get recreated? That would make sense. Gosh darn it. Okay, so this is why is this unnecessarily complicated? All right, now I have to think about where have I done this before? Um, I know I've done this in another project. Is it this one? No. Better with no hit. Just testing the flow specifically, though. It's not necessarily what I want. I thought I once did something like where there was like a is it a channel flow? No, that doesn't do it. I want to look at this really quick. We can make a flow collector. Um, okay. All right. So we are knee deep in some stuff, Matt. I'll try to go fast because I know you've got a time frame. Okay. So you know the TOA app has a login screen and it has like the task list screen. And based on whether or not you've logged in, aka whether there's a token stored on the device, um, we change which screen you're looking at. So I wanted to write a test for that. So I've got so far, um, if we look at main activity test, and we can kind of ignore this because it's not working, but we'll talk about what we want to do. I tried recreating the activity, it didn't do what I wanted. So we want to, when we're not signed in, aka when we mock that we're logged out, we should see everything from the sign in screen. And when we're logged in, we would see the empty task list screen. So I learned that, so I'm looking at the HILT tests here, and I've got like this before function where we could set up, and I tried doing something like this, like, token repository dot clear token to like simulate being logged out, right? And this kind of works, except what happens is it conflicts with this, where the before function is run before the test, but it's not run before the activity is created. And so the first thing I looked at was, does compose offer me an option to delay that activity creation the way that espresso activity test rule did? Um, and I could not find the answer to that. So then I was like, well, we've got this in our token repository, and specifically in the fake token repository, which is here. We've got like this local token that we keep in memory, and we observe the token. And so then I was kind of going in this rabbit hole of, can we make this function suspend, basically return a flow that doesn't emit, and then write another function that will emit, which can be called via our test. Or another way is like, or have store token emit. So one way we looked at was, well, we could actually make like a state flow, right? That could be like a mutable state flow. We could start with null, you know, and then like when we store token, we could do token flow dot value equals token flow, which will solve that problem. When we store a token, or whoops, is token, which will solve that problem, which when we store a token, we will then emit to this flow. And we could have observed token, say, return token flow. But the problem is this emits an initial value, or emits an initial value. So I guess now the question might be, can we create a state flow without an initial value? Maybe that's a good question. Create a state flow without initial value. Is that a thing? There's this upvoted answer here about using a shared flow. Um, Shared flow doesn't need an initial value. Okay. Are these default? Okay, that's exactly what they recommended in the docs, which I should go, or in this. Okay, so let's try this then. So get out of here. Do I need to really make my own? Or I guess I can create a mutable shared. Mutable shared flow is also an interface. Oh, but there is a mutable shared flow function. Okay. With, okay, hold on. I'm gonna steal this. I'm gonna steal this. Also make clear token emit to that flow. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So we're gonna get rid of that entirely. So token flow dot. No, we're just gonna do emit. We're in test. If this fails, that's fine. So at initial usage, token flow doesn't have a value, and one won't be received until stored token. I should have just called on you right away, Matt. So we're an hour and 9 minutes into this problem. I mean, not we're not an hour and 9 minutes into this specific problem. We had a lot of good chats. Uh, well, so this Stack Overflow or this GitHub answer says created with replay one buffer overflow equals drop oldest and applied distinct until change to make it behave identically to a state flow, except it won't require initial value. Oh, so do I also need that? So I was kind of just copying them because I assumed this person and 14 other people knew better than I did. So we could play around with it, but let's assume they know better than I do, and when the tests pass, I'll commit, and then we could play around with it. Also, Matt, I don't know if the other person who asked me this, um, I don't know if Mitzer is still here, but we got a good question, which is, do you have any pet peeves when working with designers? And not like in a bad way, like, like, oh, I hate when designers do this. Just like, do you have pet peeves? Like, I talked about how my pet peeve is often getting iOS designs and when there's not included nuance between like how the different platforms navigate and things like that. Also, you should not be a wildcard import, but I'll deal with that after. Okay, so then if this works, then what we'll do here is we'll do show login when not signed in. So mock being logged out. Um, or clearing token simulates being logged out. Gotta go. Have a good talk. Oh, it's at 1 o'clock. Everyone, I said I would go, but I'm still coding. But if you want to drop stream and go listen to Matt and Madonna's Android Dev discussions, highly recommend joining them. I will not be um uh what was it? I will not be upset if you drop the stream to go listen to that talk. So go check that out. Um Get out of here. Huh, I should probably have hidden this. Huh. Okay. So, um, oh, does the accent thing work in these tests? It does. Um, doesn't it? Identifier not allowed in Android projects. Since when? I swear I've seen it. But I don't typically write my tests that way. Um, Storing a token simulate being logged in. Also, I am kind of bothered by my inconsistent language here. So let's use log. I think we typically say logged in this project. Not allowed in UI tests unless you have a min SDK of like 28. Whoa. Today I learned. Um, okay. So they're going to be slow again, probably, but let's see if this works. And we can give Matt a huge shout out after his talk for helping solve this problem in like 4 minutes. All right. Show task list when logged in. I'm showing nothing. Hmm. I feel like this is supposed to be the splash screen. I wonder. Is fake token repository the one that's actually called here? All right, let's. Okay, hold on. Do some debugging here. Make sure we hit the right breakpoint. Alright, I did not hit this. Why? Is run blocking my issue? I assumed I could just call run blocking. Not hitting this breakpoint, which is super weird. But the test is running, right? Has to be. What are these logs? Lifecycle status change in pre-on create. I assume this is because it's waiting on the token thing. But my IDE doesn't appear to be working because I would have at least hit this. Or or am I not hitting this because the activity can't start because the token repository isn't emitting anything? Oh, you're kidding. What happens if I try this? Do I still have the same issue if I put this in setup? Probably. Is that the issue? I don't really want to make two token repositories to like simulate the different examples. It's definitely something we could do, but feels off. Um, what if it's the? Is that it? Do I need? Try that. Let's try removing that replay. Also, Matt said I don't need this. Ref. Um. Okay. Let's try this again. I dropped that distinct until change. That's what we're gonna try now. That's not the issue. Okay, what does replay do? The number of values replayed to new subscribers. Well, so do I want that to be one? Because, or do I not care? Because I'm not giving it an initial value. So let's try removing that and let's try using just the default constructor. I'm gonna try with the default constructor on our mutable shared flow here. That's so weird. Put out some logs real quick. And let's see where we're getting stuck. Um, I was not running it in debug mode. Um, which, yeah, like, but even when I wasn't hitting my breakpoints, which is why I'm going down this rabbit hole of thinking there's something going on in the activity. I might need to run it in debug for the logcat output to show up. Let's do that in a sec. Oh, well, I can just do this. Yeah, it does, but I've seen weird scenarios where sometimes it still does print to the logcat. If it doesn't, I'll use the log.d function. I don't know, but I feel like Android's gotten smarter and that sometimes you still see system.out in the logcat as well. Okay, so we're just getting uninitialized over and over and over. Yep. Okay. 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 Stop. Okay. That answers that question. So we're stuck in an initialized state. Oh my god. NASA, thank you for the follow. Blue light glasses are great. That's a nice logcat spam. Okay. We learned something here though. Okay. So figured it out. I figured it out, or a portion of it. So our fake repository that's delaying until we need it to is working. The problem is our view model here, um, this is user logged in, it just calls first or null. I wonder if I can do like, but wouldn't that still wait? Wouldn't this still, well, I guess what happens if I do first? Will that delay? Because I'm doing first or null, so if there is no first value, then nothing is there. But what happens if I do first? So I think, sorry, so let me go take a step back. So the token repository returns a flow, right? A flow is this asynchronous stream that observes every time a change happens, we get that update. But what we do here to see if we're logged in is we just pull for the first value by ourselves. But like we said, there is no first value. Nothing is actually emitted yet. Um, so we need to wait until that happens. So what happens if I go back to the fake token repository, Cheers, I'll hydrate in a sec. I guess I still don't need this. Also, Bart's, thank you for the follow. Oops, hold on. I still don't think I need this. I don't think this fixes it. Oh, they are helping. I didn't. I had a thing on the cover glass. I thought you said. I didn't realize you asked a question if they were helping. Yes, I definitely feel less strain on my eyes overall. Okay, pause. Oh no. Wait, where was it? We've got our session status uninitialized. I'm gonna remove this. Hold on. Stop. Uh, okay, so we're close. So now we have to figure out why. Oh my god, this is a lot of work just for a stupid test. Okay, so we know that we're getting stuck in the loop state. So now we need. What we need is. I think I think I'm gonna have an answer. Um, checking. We're gonna check user logged in, right? And then we're gonna do observing token. I think I'm onto something here. Sorry, this is first and all. We're gonna run this, and I think this will help me sort something out. Yeah, check this out. So we wait for the user to be logged in. We wait for first or null. This is a suspending function, and there is no value in our flow. So this suspends, and everything halts. Like this suspending function can never complete because it's waiting for the flow to emit, but we never get that far because this function stops everything. So I think maybe what I should have done is switch to a different dispatcher. So can I do like, will this fix it? Will this fix it? If it doesn't, we'll want to like observe the logged in state, but I don't know that I want to observe the logged in state because I don't want to like, I mean, ideally we do. I think we have a GitHub issue to observe the logged in state, and basically anytime this changes, we'll log out. All right, have a good run, Trax. I'll let you know, or you can wait 30 seconds for the moment of truth. That was not it. Okay, so we will just have to uh okay. I will keep working on this and I'll let you know what our answer is. But we're on to something here. So just a note for everyone. So um what's happening is this line is suspending everything. And as a result, the activity creation doesn't complete. And so we never get to our test code that modifies the token. So now the question would be is stop observing flow after one emission. See if we could do something like this. Okay. So we can get a reference to a job and then we can cancel it. So So what we could do maybe is hmm, take this back a step. Where is this used? Um, do I want the use case? I think what I want here is I want the use case to return a flow. Wait, but is this actually happening? I have to think through this a little better. Okay, let's find out. What would happen if we made this a flow and we did return token repository dot observe token? Um, we said token is not equal to null. And then in our main activity, or no, sorry, in our session view model, we do we'll do get session from logged in status. What this will do then is we'll do is user logged in use case dot is user logged in dot on each. We do this. I'll skip. Now the problem with this, the only problem with this is that so we observe the actually don't know if we're gonna have a problem with this. Update the main activity and time hit change. So what we can do here is we can do distinct until changed. That seems smart. Let's see if this does it. So now we don't have any suspending functions that are waiting for that are just sitting there waiting for the where's my debug window? Or maybe I did run this time. We don't have any suspending functions that are just stuck waiting, except this is still happening. What the heck? This stream ended up way more complicated than I thought it would. But this should be fine. I guess is the issue. Is the issue that the activity never creates? And this just isn't an issue when we deal with data store directly? So what would happen? All right, let's go another route here. What would happen if we used a real token repository? Would we have the same problem? Because another thought is, okay, so let's just see what would happen if we used our real token repository. Because now that we changed this to be a flow, would it still work? It'll look weird in our tests, but would it work? It looks like it did there. Okay, what is happening? That actually looks like it worked. So what would happen? Let's see if both tests pass. So this is when logged in. We're gonna have to sit and wait because it's slow for reasons. I have no idea why these are slow. It's slow whether I do run or debug. I wonder if they'd be equally slow if I run the connected check task. This is painful. They should not be this slow. Why did you fail? Because it didn't find the exact text? But it worked. Because we changed this to because we changed this thing to observe the logged in state and then changed the start destination, it worked. And that's probably best because, like I said, we had an issue in here somewhere for like observe signed in status. So if the user signs out, they can auto redirect. We did that. Okay. So this technically works. So let's take a step back. Let's commit this code and say testing main activity based on logged in status. I'm going to push this without running the get the checks because I think some will fail. Let's make the pull request. Let's walk through it together. There's a couple things that I want to update from this. 141. Okay. Add test for 170. Also fixes number 141. VI passing. And we don't need screenshots for this one. Okay. Let's go over our pull request now, which should answer a lot of what we changed. So I'm going to add a bunch of like clarifying notes as we go through this. So added this to changed our test runner so we can reference hilt dependencies inside our test. And that's fine. So we added kdocs here. We need to override our application test for hilt dependencies to work correctly. Cool. We added main activity test, which has show login when not logged in. So we clear the token to simulate not being logged in. And then we verify the login screen's visible. Cool. And then we do, for logged in, we store the token. We just store this test token and we make sure the base screen is visible. This is failing right now. So what I wanted to change actually is, instead of using each property, let's put a text tag on the screen and verify that as displayed. And I want to do the same thing here. So that's one change we're going to make, is we're going to use test tags for the screens. We ended up not using this, or rather, bind token repository is just binding the prod version, but keeping for education's sake. Let's add kdoc. Fake token repository. Again, we ended up not using this, but we'll keep it for now. Remove log. Change this to a flow. Cool. We'll need to fix wildcard import. Detect will yell at me. Deal with that later. And now we change this so we're observing the logged in status and we're updating the session state anytime that changes. And anytime our session state changes, our main activity changes the main route too, which is now how we were ultimately able to get these tests to pass after a lot of navigating. So I hope that makes sense. So let's comment those and let's change those one at a time. Let's start with, okay, we resolved that. Let's start with the test tags. So let's go to login screen. Let's do something like this. Let's make an object called login. We'll make an object called login screen. And then we'll say test tag will be login screen. And what we'll do is on the login content, this should consume a modifier, and we could do modifier dot test tag login screen dot test tag. It doesn't take a modifier. Let's fix that. You were very neat. Thank you. I try to, at the end of every stream, or like when it gets really complicated, just take a step back and walk through each of those steps, because I know like trying to follow me through the rabbit hole is very difficult. So I get that. I don't want people to be like, anyone to ever feel lost. So let's do a similar thing for task list screen. Object task list screen. We'll call this tag the task list screen. Composable also needs a modifier. And we'll put this on the scaffold itself. And so then what we can do is in our tests, what we will do here is instead of all of these assertions, we do compose test rule dot on node with tag login screen dot test tag dot assert is displayed. And we'll do a similar thing down here, but we'll just change this to task list screen. And so the benefit of this, of these test tags, is that the individual content of these screens can change without breaking this test. Because this test isn't trying to say like, oh, do we have an email input? That should exist in its own login screen test, which we can write after this. But it should say, is the login screen visible? And that's what these tags will now do for us. So clean this up and let's run this. While it's running, I'm going to look for everywhere that I put my log statements and remove those. Show task list when logged in. Yep. Still don't know why these are taking so long. Kind of want to look into that as well. That feels very, very confusing. But it's also painful because I need to know if this next test is passing. Um, but okay, so we can resolve this and resolve this. Let's add kdocs on the fake repository module rather. So at the time I'm writing this comment, this module is not used, but we kept it here for education's sake, as this shows how we can write a module to override dependencies set inside the application variant. Cool. Removed our logs, and we need to fix wildcard import. So what file was that in? Holy dependency upgrades. Session view model. So here's how I fix this. So I'm tweaked which IDE I'm using today because I was having issues. So I like to go into IDE settings, search for wildcard. Maybe it's not here. Code style Kotlin, imports, and then use single name import, no exceptions, and hit apply. And so now I'll get rid of this. But now as I import these back in, Android Studio will not automatically replace it with the wildcard import, which means my static analysis checks will pass again. And look, so now we don't have a wildcard import. So the next thing we could do really quick is we could do detect. And it passed. So let's also update our stream history file. So all the way down at the bottom here. This is now, holy crap, stream 34. Main activity UI tests. Added UI test to validate which screen is shown when the user is logged in or not. PR, we can add that. We have that link. YouTube coming soon. And let's add this up at the top in our long list by dates. Stream 34, main activity. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, if you go to the GitHub repo, !GitHub if you don't have it, there is a stream history file in the root project of the project that has every stream I've ever done for the TOA app and links to relevant YouTube videos, PRs, resources we talked about, things like that. So do check that out. And now it is 1:37, and I wanted to write more tests. Why don't I check in on my work messages and see if I've got some any messages, and depending on the answer to that, maybe we will stretch this out a little further. So I'm going to switch to the intermission view really quick while I just check some stuff on my phone. I have no pings. Okay. Okay. So what do you think, chat? You want to actually test our login screen now? Beyond just verifying whether you... Oh, bye, Carmen. Have a great day. All right. Hopefully there's some folks sticking around. And we'll push the stream limit a little bit today. Oops, hold on. Let me make sure I don't have any other messages. I'll answer that later. Nice. Okay. Okay. Let's write some actual login screen tests now. Um, Switch back to coding V. So let's do a new branch. Um, I literally called the last one login screen tests. Actual login screen. Final V2. We'll troll branch name there. Login screen test, actual login screen, final V2. Yeah, that sounds about right. So let's test this screen. So someone asked me earlier about the robot pattern. So what is the robot pattern? Well, let's walk through it. So let's go to our login screen composable real quick. Call this login screen test. I don't want you to go there. God dang it. Okay, hold on. Let's put it here. Login screen test. But this should really go in like this package. So it matches the same package as what's there. So let's talk about test robots really quick as like a high level. So what do we want to get from our UI test here? Well, if we write a test, and let's put some things we're gonna need. So we're gonna need like our compose test rule, which is create compose rule. And what this does, if you're unfamiliar, is this creates basically an empty component activity that allows us to render whatever the heck we want in that activity. This is actually really useful. So now we're dealing with the login screen, which is the main screen of the app. But this is really useful if you want to test a compose screen that is like deeply nested in your app. You can test that specific screen without having to validate the navigation through it. So let's run a test like, we'll call it valid login, where we simulate like we can actually successfully log in. So typically you'd see stuff like compose test rule on node with text, email, and then we do like type perform text input, a@a.com, and then we would, go on and on. Now this is great. This works. This is valid. If you're writing tests like this, don't feel bad. But it brings difficulty when we talk about scalability, because if I want to write like a negative login test for all the different login errors that I have, then I have to duplicate these lines of code over and over again. And if I change something, like if I change so much as the input hint for email, I have to change all of my tests. So the idea is, well, what if we extracted that all out and we did something like login robot, and we said like enter email, test@test.com, enter password, hunter2, right? And then click, and then we did like click login. And then we could have, task list robot, and then say like, assert visible. And ideally we'd probably do this with login robot, right? We'd first check, is the screen visible? So this is what we want to get to, right? Like this is the ideal test format, in my opinion. So how do we get there? Well, first we need to create the robot. So let's put that in the same. Also, sorry if you can hear that horn. Welcome to New York City. We'll call this login screen robot. And this will need a compose test rule. Which I think, do I need compose content test rule? I think that's the interface that I want. Yeah. Oh, no. I don't need it to be a content test rule in this case. I think I could just do compose test rule. Anyways, so this is going to have a couple functions on it. Like, well, before we put the functions, like it's going to have a function like enter email, right, which will be a string. But we also need a way to enter that email. So what I like to do is I make private variables for everything that we can interact with. So like email input is going to be compose test rule on node with text, email. And sorry, let me get rid of this. And let me get rid of this for a moment. And then we'll have, say, password input, which will be compose test rule.onNode with text password. And then similarly, we'll have, okay, login button. And we'll also have sign up button. And then also in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a root. Like screen root will be compose test rule.onNode with tag login screen.test tag. So now we can write functions that interact with these directly. So when we enter email, we're going to do email input that perform text input email enter password. We'll take in a string and we'll do password input dot perform text input password. And we do this all the way down. Click login button. We'll do login button dot click, perform click rather, and we'll have click sign up button. Sign up button dot perform click. And let's add. We talked about this. Let's add an assert visible function, and we'll just do screen root dot assert is displayed. Beautiful. So I guess I don't need this to be a private val because we don't touch it again. Now, the other thing we need to do is we need to write a cool function that allows us to get this lambda syntax. So let's write a function. We'll call it login screen robot. It will consume a compose test rule. And then it will also consume a block, basically a collection of actions that need to be operated on a login screen robot. So we just do login screen robot at the receiver here, and we return unit. I know that looks confusing, but basically what we do then is we create the robot with the compose test rule, and then we call apply that block. Or another way to think about this is, we do block.invoke, which is saying like run this block on this robot, but we'll clean that up. So yeah, so then in our login screen tests, we'll change this because we call it something different with the compose test rule. And that works. And so now let's do a similar thing for task list robot. Call this task list screen robot. This will have a compose test rule. Here we'll just do the root function for now. Screen root will be compose test rule dot on node with tag task list screen dot test tag, and then assert visible. We will do screen root dot assert is displayed, and we'll have to do a similar function here. We'll do function task list screen robot consumes that compose test rule and something to apply on a task list screen. And we do task list screen robot. Task list screen robot. So now we can do task list screen robot, compose test rule. So this is only a portion of it. And when I say a portion of it, I mean we need to render the screen. So what we'll do here is we'll start by doing compose test rule, set contents, we'll do a login screen. Um, navigator can be fake destinations navigator, I guess is what I would do here. Um, aha, interesting. This might fail because fake destinations navigator doesn't actually go anywhere. Instead, we may just want to assert that the destination was requested, if this makes sense to chat. So let's run valid login and let's see what that looks like. And this is really cool. If you've never seen like an automated UI test before, you're about to see something pretty cool. I love watching screens get automated like this. Now, I hope it's a little faster. Okay. Am I wrong? Um, why aren't you rendered? Is it because the view model's not created? What is going on here? No, I don't need that. Why did nothing render? Oh, cannot get an instance of class to a login view model. Interesting, but Hilt is. Hmm. Okay. Can I? Okay. So there's a um default argument here for a Hilt view model, which it can't get from this test. I wonder. I have no idea if this will work. Can we inject the view model? Let's find out. If not, we can create one ourselves with the dependencies. Nope, probably a similar issue here. Why are they so slow? Is it my device? Is it because I'm running on a device, not an emulator? I doubt it, but maybe there's something funky going on there. If Hilt can't inject the V model, we just have to create our own, which is not a big deal because that's what we did in like the task list screen test. We mocked everything and we made our own view model. So that might just be what we have to do for the login screen test. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's try. Oh, wait. Hold on. I'm going to leave this just in case. But is the issue that I didn't add the hilt, like the hilt stuff? What is it called? Hilt Android rule. God dang it. So if I add the hilt Android rule, and then we'll have to do our setup. Let's leave this. Let's bring this back. Or no, not yet. And we do hilt Android rule dot inject. Do I need anything else? Or is that it? That's it. So I'm going to see if this will pick up the default argument. If it doesn't, then we'll still try injecting the view model into this class first. Okay, looks like we're going to get the same issue, and it's going to take forever to fail, but the fact that I don't see the login screen kind of tells me what I need to know. So let's try this one more time. What? Injection of a Hilt view model class is prohibited since it cannot create it directly. Okay. Um, the answer this probably told me more specific stuff, but instead what we'll do is we'll do login view model. Credentials login use case equals prod credentials login use case. Wait, can I inject this? Probably. Probably. If that does it. Let's go. Okay, you can't see anything. And I also keep getting this test app keeps stopping. But okay, it worked. Let's do this for fun here. Let's take what we just did, wrap this in a TOA theme, just so we get our UI here. But this did, for what it's worth, this failed here because it doesn't actually navigate. So I'm going to look at the task list screen test where we can validate this here. Huh, that still looks a little off, but we'll do. Let's put this up at the top, actually. Um, and we want to verify that we went to task list screen destination. I don't think this has any arguments. But now, instead of verifying that the task list screen is visible, since we use the fake destination navigator, we just want to verify that the destination was requested, even though it won't actually be visible. Sorry, you can't see that whole comment, but that's what we're doing here. I'm gonna put this on a surface just so it looks nice. Also, add not a material to surface. All right, let's run these tests again, and see how this runs. Okay, I keep getting this. I don't want this, but I think it passed. I'm not sure because the keyboard's still up, but it looked like it tried. Right? Am I crazy? Or did it hit the login button? We'll find out when this is done running, apparently. It's the end of the test that's taking forever. Have you noticed this? It flew through this, which means it probably did the assertion, so it's just that the test is slow to wrap up. And I don't know if that's Hilt's problem or what? How are these doing? This is still 20 minutes in, which is not outrageous for that thing to run. Failed. Expected to contain list, task list screen, but it didn't. Okay. So why did it fail? Did it fail because it couldn't click the login button? How do you hide the keyboard? I thought, can you do it from the compose test rule? No, not that easily. Um, Also, I might need a restroom break in a moment. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do login button that assert is displayed really quick. And I want to make sure that we're actually clicking the login button. It may be a keyboard issue. I see the flash like it's trying to navigate or something. Something's happening there. Where's the login screen? On login clicked, login button clicked. We get the credentials, we submit, and then we do handle login result. This submits the state, login, and then in the login screen, we have this disposable effect. If login's completed, navigate to task list screen destination. But we also do this pop up to thing, and that's probably why it's weird. Oh, is that it? Um, oh, is that what's happening? Okay, hold on. I think I understand what's happening. If we look at our login screen, we call navigate. Yeah, but we still add. I want to put a debug point right here and see if it's actually getting added to our navigated routes. Or is navigated routes is empty? I have an idea, chat. I think what happens here, um, it's 2 o'clock, I gotta go. I think what's happening here is that in our screen, when we pop up to the login screen destination, it is like, I think this is screwing with the test. Let's test that. And if that's the case, I might have to figure that out. But I was going to take a restroom break, but it's also 2, so let's just call it. But let's find out if this is the issue, and this is where we'll pick up. Oh, you didn't see the phone, but it still flashed again, so. Um, yeah, I think it's still failing. But it looks so far like this one is going well. So that's exciting. So we got some tests in today. And even if we haven't figured out all of them, we kind of set a framework, which is exciting. I'm going to see who is live right now.